All right, today we're going to talk about the invisible software that pretty much runs every major company you can think of. We're talking about the digital backbone of modern business, ERP. But first, let me ask you something. Have you ever wondered why it can be so ridiculously hard to get a simple answer from a big company? You ask the sales department about your order, and they say, let me check with the warehouse. And then the warehouse has to check with accounting. It feels like nobody's on the same page, right? Well, turns out there's a reason for that. And to get the solution, we've got to understand the problem first. Okay, so to understand that whole communication mess, we need to hop in a time machine. Before the 1990s, most companies were living in what you could call the age of silos. I want you to picture a company where every single department, finance, manufacturing, sales, HR, you name it, had its own separate custom-built computer system. They were basically digital islands that couldn't talk to each other. Information was totally trapped. So if you wanted a complete picture of the business, you had to manually pull reports from each of these silos and then try to stitch them all together. It was slow, wildly inefficient, and yeah, super prone to errors. This whole setup was called the functional model, and it had some serious problems. Because information couldn't just flow freely between departments, companies got really top-heavy. You had layers and layers of management whose main job was just passing information up and down the chain of command. This made them incredibly slow to react to any changes in the market and just, fundamentally inefficient. So how do you break down these digital islands? Well, the solution wasn't some new management theory from a business guru. Nope, it was a powerful tech revolution that had been quietly building up for decades. The pieces of the puzzle really came together over 3 decades. Back in the 60s, you had the first powerful mainframe computers showing up in businesses. Then in the 70s, a huge breakthrough, the relational database. This let businesses store and actually analyze massive amounts of data in a structured way. And by the 80s, client-server architecture meant that multiple people on a network could all share the same data. All the pieces, the hardware, the software, they were finally on the board. And the engine driving all of this forward was the relentless pace of Moore's Law. This famous observation meant that computing power was just growing exponentially, while at the same time getting smaller and way, way cheaper. Suddenly, these complex, company-wide systems that were once basically science fiction were becoming a practical reality. And this is what set the stage for the solution that would completely redefine the modern corporation. That solution was a kind of central brain for the business, which we call Enterprise Resource Planning, or ERP. The concept is actually brilliantly simple, but it was revolutionary in practice. Instead of dozens of separate systems, an ERP is one single company-wide computing environment built around one shared central database. When sales makes a sale, manufacturing sees it instantly. When finance pays a bill, the purchasing department knows in real time. It's one single source of truth for the entire organization. And the company that really pioneered this whole vision was SAP. It was founded in Germany way back in 1972 by 5 former IBM analysts. And their goal was, well, pretty audacious. They wanted to build a single, standard software product that could be configured to run any business, giving them data in real time, not in last month's printed out reports. The real genius of their approach was its modular design. Think of it like this. The shared database is the operating system, right? And then each business function, sales, finance, HR, is like an app. A company could just buy the apps it needed, but they all plugged into the same central database, which made sure everyone was working from the exact same data. No more islands. Now this sounds incredible, doesn't it? A total game changer. And it was. But implementing a system this powerful and this transformative is anything but simple. Let's take a look at the reality of it. So the benefits are massive, no question. We're talking huge gains in efficiency, easier global integration for these big multinational companies, and way better decision-making because managers finally have accurate, real-time data. But the drawbacks are just as significant. The cost is enormous, the implementation is incredibly complex, and it can cause major disruption to the business while it's all being installed. And when we say high cost, we're not just talking about the price tag for the software license. Oh no! The true cost includes all the new hardware you need to run the system, fees for armies of consultants to help you install it, the disruption of all that implementation time, and a massive, massive investment in employee training. It is a colossal undertaking. Another criticism you hear a lot is that ERP systems are inflexible. And, It's true that once a system is configured and running, making big changes is expensive and really risky, but it's kind of a myth that they're completely rigid. Most systems, like SAP's, offer literally thousands of configuration options to tailor the software to a company's specific processes before it ever goes live. So why does some of these ERP projects succeed spectacularly while others just fail in a huge fiery crash? Well, the research is crystal clear. It's almost never about the technology. It's about the people. Success absolutely requires unwavering support from the very top. A deep analysis of your business processes before you even start, heavy investment in training your employees, and very clear ownership of the project. If you skimp on any of these, you are just asking for trouble. But when these projects do succeed, wow. They don't just improve a company, they fundamentally change how it operates from the ground up. This quote just perfectly captures the core shift. See, before ERP, management spent most of its time trying to figure out what had already happened by looking at old reports. They were always looking in the rearview mirror. With the real-time data from an ERP system, they could finally manage the business as it was happening, making proactive decisions instead of just reacting to things. So the ultimate takeaway is this. ERP wasn't just a new piece of software. It was the catalyst that forced companies to break down their internal walls and completely rethink how work gets done. It shifted the entire business world from that inefficient, siloed functional model to a streamlined, integrated, and process-driven one. It truly was the digital backbone for the modern corporation, which, leaves us with a final fascinating question to think about. If a centralized ERP system was the brain for the 20th century company, what's going to be the brain for the company of the 21st century?